Bismillah walhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. We've reached chapter 4 or section 4 of Hilyah Talib al-Ilm, and this section, or in this section, the author rahimahullah ta'ala speaks about the etiquettes of dealing with your colleagues or your friends or your companions. And he mentions only one point here, but it's a very important point. And we'll read what the author says, and then we'll read what Shaykh Uthaymeen rahimahullah ta'ala adds to it. So the author says, point number 23, beware of the bad companion. Just as hereditary disposition is hidden, bad characteristics are also hidden, because character is transferable and first impressions are major abductors of the hearts, i.e. they take the heart. And people are like the flocks of birds, naturally disposed to imitating one another. So beware of associating with whosoever is to this liking. For it is indeed destruction, and prevention is better than cure. So in this first paragraph, the author rahimahullah ta'ala, if he was to summarize this whole point number 23, this first paragraph, the author is pointing out that it's part of human nature to be sociable. We're created in a way that we have to have relationships, social relationships, whether with parents or whether with spouses or friends in this case. So note, the Shaykh mentions that's part of our nature. Shaykh Uthaymeen rahimahullah ta'ala mentions a couple of points here. From them, the fact that some of the wording here from the author is taken from the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. One of the famous hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam being verily the example of the good friend, the person that you sit with, which is salih, and the example of the person which you sit with, which is bad, is like the example of the person who carries perfume and the person who is an iron or works with hot metals. So Shaykh Uthaymeen rahimahullah ta'ala mentions, so upon you is to make sure you pick the righteous friend, the one who would guide you to that which is good and clarify it to you, and he will encourage you to do the good, and he will also, this righteous friend will also clarify to you what is bad and will warn you against it, will indicate to you, look, let's not do that, let's keep away from this. And Shaykh Uthaymeen goes on to say, and beware of the friend who is bad, the friend who is evil. Because Shaykh Uthaymeen says, because innal mar'a ala dini khalili, because verily the man or person is upon the religion of his close friend. And he says, وَكَمْ مِنْ إِنسَانٍ مُسْتَقِيمٍ قُيِّضَ لَهُ شَيْطَانٌ مِّن بَنِي آدَمَ فَصَدَّهُ عَنِ الْإِسْتِقَامَةِ. For how many people which were upright, which were straight on the right path, were tested with, and they were chained with a shaitan from the children of Adam, and that shaitan, that person who was bad from the children of Adam, ended up pushing them and pulling them towards that which is bad, and pushed him away from being steadfast upon his religion. Shaykh Uthaymeen goes on to say, وَكَمْ مِنْ إِنسَانٍ جَائِرٍ قَاصِدٍ يُسِرَّ لَهُ صَاحِبٌ يَدُلُّهُ عَلَى الْخَيْرِ. And how many of the opposite kind, they were bad people, and then a good person pushed him or guided him to that which is good. So on this point, Shaykh Uthaymeen mentions, so sometimes a person may be good and they have a bad friend that pushes them down or pulls them towards evil. And the opposite is also true. Sometimes a person may be bad and a good friend in their life, a good influence, pushes them towards the goodness. So Shaykh Uthaymeen says, after mentioning that, وَعَلَى هَذَا نَقُولُ, and upon this we say, إِذَا كَانَ فِي مُصَاحَبَةِ الْفَاسِقِ سَبَبٌ لِهِدَايَتِهِ, if there is in your accompanying a open disobedient person a benefit or a cause for his guidance, فلا بأس أن تصاحبه وتدعوه إلى بيتك وتأتي إلى بيته وتخرج معه للتمشي بشرط ألا يقدح ذلك في عدالتك عند الناس. So if there is in you being friends with a person who is openly disobedient, a very bad person, if in that you being friends or accompanying that person is a way for that person to become guided, then there is no problem with doing that, as long i.e. with spending time with him, giving da'wah to him, as long giving da'wah to your house, like calling him to your house, or you visiting him at his house, and you go out with him and walk with him. There is no problem with doing that with the person who is a bad person, as long as Shaykh Uthaymeen says bishart, with a condition that you being with this person in front of the people, and he comes in and out your house with you and so forth, it doesn't end up diminishing your status in front of the people, i.e. people will not say that, oh look, he's an evil person as well. Or they, for example, you have a friend from school, he's a drug dealer, not in school, but when you got older he went a different way. So you see him and you try to give da'wah to him, look, you shouldn't do that. You might go to the shop with him, buy him lunch, or he might buy you lunch sometimes. You keep in touch and you're hoping that will guide him over time. That's fine, as long as when people see you walking with him, they're not going to think, oh, so and so has become a drug dealer as well, or he is bad like that. So that's with regards to a point with regards to the bad friendship. Shaykh Uthaymeen also mentions another point. وَكَمْ مِنْ إِنسَانٍ فَاسِقٍ هَدَاهُ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى بِمَا يَسَّرَ لَهُ مِنْ صُحْبَةِ الْخَيْرِ. وَقَوْلُ الْمُؤَلِّفِ, and the statement of the author, النَّاسُ كَسَرَائِبِ الْقَطَى, النَّاسُ كأسراب القطى. سبق بيان أن هذا من كلام شيخ الإسلام ابن تيمية وهو حقيقة، فالناس يتبع بعضهم بعضا. Birds are like, as is translated here, are like flock of birds. People are like flock of birds, naturally disposed to imitating one another. And this is from the speech of Ibn Taymiyyah, and it is correct. And with regards to the last point that the author mentions, prevention is better than cure, Shaykh Uthaymeen mentions هذا قاعدة فقهية ذكرها ابن رجب رحمه الله تعالى في القواعد الفقهية. This is a principle in fiqh. In fiqh, this is a principle in fiqh, that prevention is better than cure. And he mentions, Shaykh Uthaymeen mentions that Ibn Rajab mentioned this in his book. وفي معناها قول الأطباء الوقاية أسهل من العلاج. And with the same meaning is the statement of doctors that prevention, as we would say it, prevention is easier than curing something. And Shaykh Uthaymeen gives some reasons for that. But anyway, that's enough inshallah from what Shaykh Uthaymeen mentioned with regards to that point. The author then goes on to mention, after having mentioned that in this first paragraph that humans need friendship, needs relationships, he then goes on to mention, okay, if you must take a friend, then be aware of the following. He says, therefore choose the best for companionship and friendship, someone who will help you in your quest in drawing nearer to your Lord and agrees with you in your noble objective and intention. Take from me the most precise gauge in categorizing friends. So he's going to give you now a category of friends, 3 categories. Number 1, a friend who befriends you solely for his welfare. So for his welfare, meaning for a benefit that he wants. Number 2, a friend who befriends you solely for fun, for enjoyment, for entertainment. That's his only reason. And number 3, a friend who befriends you for virtue. A friend who befriends you for virtue. He goes on to say, as regards to the first 2 categories of friends, then the relationship with you is cut off when the necessitating reason for which they befriended you is fulfilled, i.e. they get the benefit that they wanted, the attainment of welfare in the first case, and fun or entertainment in the second case. As for the third, then As for the third category, then this is the one we will concentrate on. He is the one who is driven into a friendship due to a mutual belief in the firm establishment of virtue in both people. So now the author rahimahullah ta'ala mentioned 3 types of friends. And if you look at friends that you have in life, work colleagues perhaps as well, people that you spend time with, they generally fall under one of these 3 categories. And some scholars mention 2, some mention different numbers, but generally they fall under these 3 categories. You have a group of people, a صديق منفعة, a friend which comes to you when he needs something. He wants to get a benefit, he's asking you, oh, I need this, you know, he phones you after a long time, or just when he needs things. Then you have a friend, صديق لذة, a friend that just comes to you when it's time to entertainment. You finish his work, let's go out, let's do this, let's do that. It's just entertainment based. And then you have a friend, صديق فضيلة, a friend which is for virtue, فضيلة, virtue, extra goodness. So a person needs to try his best to have this type of, the third type of friendship, not the second type. Then the author mentions in the next paragraph that this type of friend, the third friend, is very hard to find. A companion of virtue today is a hard currency and very difficult to find. Amongst the beautiful sayings of Hisham ibn Abd al-Malik is his saying, nothing remains of the worldly pleasures except a brother with whom I raise the burden of taking precaution between me and him. I accept a brother that I don't have to worry about taking precaution between us. I don't have to worry how I act with him. He understands if I'm upset one day, or if anything between you, it's understood. You know, you forgive each other, you want good for each other. And there's a lot of statements. They say, some of the scholars mentions in other books, like your friend is the one that if he puts his hand in your pocket, you don't have to worry. Like you don't ask, because you know he's not going to cheat you. He's somebody that wouldn't benefit himself at your expense. There's many things like this with regards to characteristics of being a good friend. And then the last paragraph that the author rahimahullah ta'ala mentions, and actually here I think there is a statement. Shaykh Uthaymeen mentions with regards to these 3 companions, the footnote is at the end, but it's with regards to these 3. He mentions, وَقَدْ قَسَّمَ الْأَصْدِقَاءَ إِلَى ثَلَاثَةِ أَقْسَامٍ. The author has split friends, any friends that you have, into 3 categories. And Shaykh Uthaymeen speaks about them now. الأول صديق منفعة وهو الذي يصادقك ما دام ينتفع منك بمال أو جاه أو غير ذلك. And he is the friend that will accompany, be with you, spend time with you as long as he is benefiting from you, whatever he's seeking. For example, whether it's money or whether it's status, because maybe you're known in your area, he wants to be with you so you can introduce him to the people in your area and so forth. Shaykh Uthaymeen says, فَإِذَا انْقَطَعَ الْإِنْتِفَاعُ فَهُوَ عَدُوُّكَ. And when this benefit goes, maybe you don't have money, for example, then he becomes your enemy. He comes against you, opponent to you. لَا يَعْرِفُكَ وَلَا تَعْرِفُهُ. It is as though you don't know him, as he doesn't know you, and you don't know him. وَمَا أَكْثَرَ هَؤُلَاءِ الَّذِينَ يَلْمِزُونَ فِي الصَّدَقَاتِ إِنْ أُعْطُوا مِنْهَا رَضُوا وَإِنْ لَمْ يُعْطَوْا مِنْهَا إِذَا هُمْ يَسْخَطُونَ. And how many are this type of people? Those who want and ask and persist in wanting sadaqat. If they are given, they are happy, and if they are not given from that, then they become angry. And Shaykh Uthaymeen mentions some more, but this is the gist of it. With regards to the friend of entertainment or ladha in the Arabic, يعني Shaykh Uthaymeen says, لا يصادقك إلا لأنه يتمتع بالجلوس إليك ومحادثتك وللمسامرة والمؤانسة ولكنه لا ينفعك ولا تنفعه منه ولا تنتفع منه كل واحد منكم لا ينفع الآخر بل ضياع وقت فقط وهذا أيضا صنف يجب الحذر منه. And this type of friend, he only sits with you because he wants to enjoy himself. He finds entertainment, he finds happiness when he's with you, joking, whatever it may be. And you don't benefit him and he doesn't benefit you. Your time together is just wasted. Allahu musta'an. This doesn't mean that you cannot have a friend that you cheer him up sometimes or he cheers you up. But the point is, if that's the only basis of your friendship, then there's something missing in your friendship. The believer, and especially now we're talking about the student, he has to have friends that push him to study, that push him to work for the akhirah, not to waste his time. So yes, cheering each other up is no problem. After a hard day's work, you might want to go out and have entertainment to relax the body and so forth. But it shouldn't be that that's all you do as friends. Like every day that's what you do, or every time you meet that's what you're doing. Like you don't have any benefit to one another. That's problematic. Then Shaykh Uthaymeen speaks about with regards to the third one. As for the third, صديق فضيلة, a friend with regards to virtue, يحملك على ما يزين وينهاك عما يشين. He pushes you with regards to, and he carries you towards that which will beautify you, and he stops you and prohibits you from doing that which will make you bad. And he opens up to you the doors of goodness, and he guides you to them. And if you slip, وَإِذَا زَلَلْتَ نَبَّهَكَ, if you slip, then he will alert you to that. عَلَى وَجْهٍ لَا يَخْدِشُ كَرَامَتَكَ, in a way which does not take away from your nobility. I.e., he doesn't alert you by humiliating you in front of people. He doesn't alert you by telling other people as well. Rather, the mistakes that he sees from you, he hides it, and he tells you, look, you made a mistake here. Try to not do that again. Keep away from this. I've noticed you're doing this. Akhi, don't do that. It's not good for you. So. Is not a friend who, if he finds a mistake of yours, you worried, is he going to tell people? No, he's not like that. This is a friend that he loves for you what he loves for himself. Shaykh Uthaymeen rahimahullah ta'ala then mentions the fact, what we mentioned in summary. He mentions some other points, and then with regards to this last point, after the author mentions these three categories of friends, then he goes on to mention a third point, that there will be times where you want to be alone, especially when you don't find the friend that you're looking for. The friends that you have, maybe they're busy and so forth. So he says, amongst the subtle statements that should be noted are some that say al-uzla. Al-uzla means isolation, that you retreat yourself and you're away from the people. And it is al, as in the, ayn, za, lam, ta marbuta. Al-uzla. They say al-uzla, isolation, without the letter ayn for the word ilm. So if you take the word uzla, al-uzla, without the ayn, isolation, without the letter ayn for ilm, it becomes az-zalla. It becomes a defect or a mistake. A mistake. And without the letter, if you have the word al-uzla, which is isolation, without the za for zuhud, i.e. doing it in order to keep away and benefit for you hereafter, then it becomes illah, al-illah, a defect. So what is the point that is being made in this statement? The point being made, if you isolate yourself, so for example, you don't go out as much with friends, you say, you know what, I need to spend time alone, rectify myself, I need to contemplate, study, and so forth. If you want to isolate yourself in that way, not isolate from the virus, isolate from the spiritual virus, then make sure you have these two qualities. Number one, ilm, knowledge, and number two, that you have zuhud, you're doing it for the right reason. If your isolation, your uzla is without the ayn, it will become zalla, it will become a mistake. So the ayn for ilm. If the uzla, the isolation, if you take the ilm, the knowledge away, by taking the ayn away, then it becomes zalla, it will be a mistake. You will fall into calamities, because you will end up maybe doing the opposite of what you wanted. And the other side was, and if you have an uzla, if you seclude yourself without zuhud, i.e. without doing it for the hereafter, then you will end up with an illah, a defect. So if you take the za for zuhud out of the word uzla, it becomes illah. Uzla, take the za, illah. Then that will become a defect if you do it if you isolate yourself from people without that right intention of zuhud. And there are books written on the topic of a person staying at home often, even the men staying at home often, not leaving the house too much. There are books written about, or statements about a person, especially a student, not having too many friends, because they distract the person from seeking knowledge. And when you have too many friends, your rights upon them also a lot. You have to, today you help this one, tomorrow this one needs help with something, the next day somebody else needs help with something. So if a person becomes a serious student, if you're just a normal student, is okay, but if he's a serious student, you will see that he won't have much time to do much else. So he will go home and devote his time to reviewing the knowledge that he's learnt in class, devote his time to researching some of the issues that came in class and also other issues. He will devote his time to writing books. He will devote his time to perhaps making videos or tapes if he's at that level of writing, of producing things. So the student of knowledge always has work to do. He hasn't got free time where he's just relaxing. There's always either something to read, something to study, something to memorize, something to revise, something to write, something to produce. So with regards to friendship, then the author mentioned, we summarized this one point number 23, into a couple of points. Number one, he starts off with the fact that we as humans need to have friendship. There's not going to be, no one can live without any sort of relationship. We're social beings. Number two, he mentioned that there are three types of friends. And then number three, the third point was that the third type of friend is very difficult to find, and that's true in our times especially. And then the fourth type of friend, fourth point that the author mentioned is, okay, so if you're going to spend time in isolation by yourself, not mixing with people a lot, then realize that this needs to be built upon knowledge and needs to be built upon zuhud. Without these two qualities, then the outcome will not be the the outcome of you being isolated and spending time with yourself will not be what you wanted. It will either be a defect or a mistake. So with that, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us righteous friends and also make us people who are righteous friends to others. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. So inshallah we'll start the class. Everyone can start their reading. Whoever wants to read something, get your stuff ready bi-idhnillahi ta'ala.